And can everybody hear with us? Well, you're familiar with these.
Yeah, that's super good.
Like that.
All right, let's see here.
And what did you do? I have a feeling I'm not making dinner. today.
No, yeah.
Oh, no problem. Thank you. You didn't have to do that. Thank you so much.
I'm not sure if we're gonna need it today unless somebody's got questions, but
I think we'll be okay. The backup offer addendum is a bit interesting and simple. We don't see them very often, but they are nice when we do see them. So, oh, I went ahead and broke this. There we go. All right.
you may begin, sir.
So the one thing I cannot see here on this one, because I'm not used to this screen, is if there's any questions, but I'm sure you'll let me know.
I will.
Behind me? All right, no problem.
Mhm.
All right, so today we have the backup offer addendum. We'll have this form come into play anytime we see where our offer was not accepted originally, but yet we do have somebody who is interested in buying the home and taking that first position, second position, third position. Technically, there can be as many positions as possible that help out with individuals to say if that home buyer, that first buyer doesn't go through, we have an opportunity to purchase the home. Funny thing about it is I have one of these right now, and it was an interesting conversation because the home offer was not accepted. There was an offer that was slightly better. The agent reached out to me and said, would your buyer like to be in this backup offer position, first position? We said yes. And then we hadn't seen paperwork for approximately about 4 or 5 days. And that was a bit interesting for us. We said, well, where's the paperwork at? They said, well, we
You've
told
been
you.
requested.
Oh, I have been requested. All right, there we go. So back again to this, so the backup offer addendum. This is a form that we use whenever we have an opportunity for a buyer who put in an offer. Their offer wasn't accepted because there was an offer that might have been slightly better or slightly more enticing for the seller to take. But yet they want to make sure that don't lose the opportunity to have a secondary backup position or a secondary offer just in case the first one doesn't go through. One thing that we find, or I found in this business, is that a lot of agents will say, okay, we'll give you backup offer position 1, 2, or 3, but we never see the form come through. So I had to notify the agent, hey, can you please use backup offer addendum? And you can find it in car forms and send that with it. We never do that. Yeah, well, I need that because that's going to tell my buyer they actually are in position if anything were to happen. One of the reasons you want that is if you are in backup offer position, let's say the purchase price of the property is $500,000 and you submitted 500,000, but your offer wasn't accepted. In the meantime, if you didn't have a form and another offer came in that was offering 540, they could essentially take that offer and never tell you that you were out of that position. Here it officially says they have to give you the option to buy the home first. So that's one of the reasons we want to use these. It's a very simple form, 1 page. Simply go through it really quick here. This is an addendum to the purchase agreement or a counter offer or other form. Typically, it's going to be a counter offer or a purchase agreement. Dated for the date when the offer was actually submitted on property known as 123 Main Street between the buyer and the seller. Very first thing is going to be that this agreement is in backup position number 1. You could be 1, 2, 3, you could be up to 20. Really, there is no limit on the number I've ever heard. I think the highest I've seen when I first got in the business was 12. Backup position 12. And the reason was because the agent had done those in the past and they knew typically 6, 7, 8 of them would fall out without a problem. So, because that's how the market was at the time. And it is contingent upon 1, written cancellation of any prior contracts and related escrows prior transaction between the seller and other buyers and mutual release of the obligation to buy, sell, or exchange that property. Seller and other buyers may mutually agree to modify or amend the terms prior to the transaction. So that's something to remember as well. The seller and other buyers may mutually agree to modify or amend the terms of prior transactions. So if you're position 3, technically the position 1 and 2 could decide they don't want to move forward. They found a different property. So that can actually be a transaction modification to make you in a better position if you weren't, you weren't number 1 at least. Let's see here. 2, cancellation rights. A, for buyers. Buyer may cancel this agreement in writing at any time before seller provides buyer copies of written cancellation and release of prior transaction signed by all parties to those contracts. One thing we have to remember is that if we're using this form, you are in a contract. If your buyer decides to cancel this agreement prior to them being notified that they have the opportunity to buy the home, they should do it in writing that allows them to move forward and put an offer on another property. If you don't do that and you have this form and you submit another offer and the offer is accepted, you are technically binding contract to be able to buy 2 homes. And we all know that's not a good idea because then the seller can go back to you and say, if you can't show evidence that you can buy 2 homes, you could be in default of a contract. B, for buyer or seller, if seller is unable to provide such written signed cancellations and releases to buyer by a certain date, then either party may cancel this agreement in writing. You can put it down for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, depending upon, saying that's the time frame we want to have by it. The buyer I have right now that's in this scenario simply said, hey, Vincent, if it's the last day and they cancel, I still want it. I'm going to wait until this home is available, or I won't move forward until this home's closed, which that's just what they decided, which is fine by me. 3, buyer deposit shall be delivered to escrow holder within 3 by default or X amount of business days after copies of written cancellation and release signed by all parties to the prior transaction are provided to buyer, or if checked, shall immediately be handled as provided in the agreement. We want to make sure, of course, that we don't do that deposit up front. We want to protect our buyer's funds. Technically, yes, you can take a deposit and say, well, we're in backup position. Here you go. I'm sure the escrow officer would not be thrilled with that at all because that's more money they got to deal with. That doesn't belong to that transaction per se. Time periods, number 4. In this agreement for investigation, contingencies, conveyance, and other obligations, 1 shall begin on the day after the seller provides buyer copies of signed cancellation and release of prior transaction, or 2, if checked, all time periods shall begin as provided in the agreement. However, if the date of the close of escrow is a specific calendar date, that date shall not be extended unless agreed in writing by buyer and seller. Technically, you can go ahead and start the date process and the time process for your inspections, contingencies, everything else. It will make your offer a bit stronger. The only problem you're going to have with that simply is going to be is you're not guaranteed to get a home at the end of the day. So if the client does that and they start doing their own inspections, they're going to lose money realistically, and that's not what we want to do. Another positive of that is if waiting until the first buyer, if they do cancels, most likely they have inspections, and we can get a copy of those inspections, see if that information is relevant, and if they're from reputable companies that maybe the buyer would be comfortable with. And as long as they are, you can move forward faster with that transaction. For 5, scope of broker's duty. The parties agree that no real estate broker or agent involved in this transaction has advised either party, 1, whether the prior transaction was legally canceled, or 2, if that party is legally entitled to the deposit. 6, expiration. If this backup offer is attached to a purchase agreement or counteroffer, it expires with that other document. Otherwise, this backup offer shall be deemed revoked unless signed and delivered back to the party, initiating by 5 p.m. on the 3rd day after signed by the seller. So, long story short, we all have dates we work with. That's going to be the date there. We all know in the new forms, and we've seen the recent revisions, they have this famous line kind of on everything. By signing below, seller and buyer acknowledges that each has received a copy of this backup offer addendum, and each has read, understands, and agrees to the terms. There we'll have the seller's and buyer's signature. Below that, we have the notice of cancellation of release of prior transaction. This actually is, let's say if you're in position number 1 as a buyer, you've signed it, you received it from the seller, you send it back to that side. When they have a cancellation from the first escrow and you're given the option to purchase the home, or your buyer is given that option, you'll receive this back with a notice of cancellation and release of prior transaction. So 1, seller acknowledges being advised to seek the advice of a qualified California real estate attorney regarding the cancellation of a prior transaction. Seller hereby delivers notice to a buyer that all prior transactions have been canceled and released. Attached hereto are copies of a signed cancellation and release prior transaction. This agreement is now full force and in effect, which means your buyer now has the option to move forward and purchase the home. Now that's the form. Couple little tips that I've been working with right now, the one I'm working on, is simply we've asked that seller and we've asked the agent from the buyer, the message was relayed, would you be willing to share whatever inspections are done now? And the reason is because we will look at them, or the buyer wants to look at them, and if everything looks good, they will release their contingency for investigation period right now and send that back to you. And the reason that is the case is going to simply say, well, buyer number one, buyer who's already in contract, if you're taking your time or making this stretch, we're going to actually have the opportunity to enable the seller to push for a quicker close or on time close. And if for any reason that buyer doesn't close or isn't kind of, maybe they're asking, hey, we want a $20,000 price reduction. If we looked at all the inspections and we looked at all the reports that are on file, and the client that I have says, hey, you know what? I'll take the home as is now. Well, that might entice that seller to push that first buyer out of contract if they're not willing to agree to their terms and not give them any kind of credit or anything else and go with the second buyer. Then we went back and looked at it. Okay, well, how fast can we close this escrow? Reached out to their lender. We can close it in 14 days comfortably, maybe even 10 days. So those are things we're asking about. We want them ahead of time so we can send that information back to this seller or the seller's agent and say simply, if that buyer is giving you guys too much grief, well, do what you got to do, but we're ready to pick it up and move forward and close this deal up. Any questions on that?
I just have a question in general, just
Sure.
to repeat it. Do you, have to tell,
Hold on, Sandra. Sorry. Drop the ball.
If you're in backup, do you have to tell the other agent that has the first contract?
If you're in backup, do you have
So if you accept a backup offer, do you have to tell the other parties that are in the contract that there is a backup, that there's been a backup signed?
I would say it's good practice to do so,
Okay.
and that might have individuals understand. So a lot of times we'll have different things come out. We've seen on the market recently where a lot of listings say there's no request for repair, the home is as is. Of course, we all know that they can say that to the blue in their face. One thing I would do is as we receive a backup offer or we're putting out backup offers, I would let the first buyer know, the first agent know, we are accepting backup offers for this property because we're letting them know the whole transaction. That way they understand that if you're asking for too much, this might be an opportunity for that seller to say, no, we're not going to do it. If you guys don't accept it, you can cancel. We have another buyer ready to go. From a strategic standpoint, if I'm a seller, I think I would, because then you're going to have an opportunity to have everyone understand we're in contract for X price. If you thought you're going to go in contract for X price and try to negotiate down or ask for all these things, it's probably not going to work in this scenario. And that lets everyone know up front, realistically, we're not playing games, we're moving forward. So if there's a statutory requirement, there may very well be at the same time as an agent with listings. I would always do it because it makes us be stronger in our position of either you want it or we have somebody else who's ready to go for it. And I make sure in this scenario as representing the buyer, we've been upfront every 7 days. Hey, where are you at in that transaction? Hey, your inspection period should have been up today if you guys had a 10-day inspection, because that's what you told me. That's one of the reasons that the offer was accepted. They lowered it down. So how do those go? Hey, how did the appraisal come out? And the agent she has actually commented that I've been more communicative with her than the agent she's in contract with now. So it's kind of fun.
You have a question up there, from Betty.
Oh,
Is
Betty,
there
okay.
a backup cancellation form?
So a backup cancellation form, I have not seen one. I've actually never used one, to be honest. The last time I did have to cancel one, it was simply we use an amendment, and we simply said that it was to be removed or we were to cancel and move out. That's the one thing I believe the forms do not have, to cancel or remove yourself from that.
I got a style question to ask.
Go ahead.
When the time periods that are on there, would you use like the 17-day period for inspections or the 21-day period or is it, they're both 21 now?
no, everything's.
For like, removal of contingencies or something like that? What time frame would you usually use?
Well, see, that depends too, because if they had, per the contract when we're writing offers, we'll typically play part of the, what works best for the client. If we're in a busy time when agents are busy, everyone's busy, we know our inspectors are busy, you can't really lower down your inspections because it takes 2 weeks to get an inspector out there. Sometimes there'll be a conversation. I'll reach out to our favorite inspectors, 2 or 3 of them. Definitely want to make sure, hey, can you make this time frame work? it's a pinch. I see if we can get this done on, I know Saturday, you usually don't work on Saturday. Do you mind going out for an extra fee and the buyer's willing to pay for it? But then that can help us adjust that accordingly. In this scenario, we wrote the contract just as we did actually, we lowered this one down to 10-day inspection window. And then there was a conversation after, because the offer wasn't accepted. Did you get inspections back? Are they qualified inspectors that you know from the area? Yes, they're recognizable names. The buyer is then curious, can you ask the seller to send those over? We'll look at them. And if for any reason they're comfortable, they'll remove contingencies. They'll amend their offer to remove that contingency of inspections, which will then give your seller more power if for any reason. My understanding is right now, they're asking for a $20,000 price reduction. Really nothing founding that really needs it. That's just what they're asking for, which means they put in a higher offer to get the offer accepted, but then now they're trying to backstep and bring that offer back down in price.
I like that verbiage, qualified local
Yes.
inspector, that's key.
Okay, this one might be a hard one. Okay, and I don't know the answer to this at all, and maybe no one does, but, when we're having so many contracts that are being assigned,
Mhm.
Can an agent, so say you're in backup position, you have a backup, Vince has a backup with meds, but meds, the contract starts going sideways over reports or something, and meds chooses to assign another buyer in place of his buyer that is in contract, what happens with the backup? Like,
My understanding, that would not be a breach of contract because that assignee. So let's say that we have that scenario, Mitz has a contract. And as Mitz is working that contract, or Mitz has a buyer, let's actually change it. Mitch, you're the buyer in this scenario.
Sure.
You're buying a home where 5 days in, you find out that you had some unknown link. Someone stole your identity. Simple, easy, someone stole your identity. You can't buy the home no more. Your sibling can buy it. And they wanted to buy it because it was grandma's house 20 years ago, and you guys got to have that house back in the family. Remember, we're not changing the contract, we're simply changing the person. So you're not getting a new contract, not getting new dates, new terms. You're just saying the buyer is now from A to B. So therefore, you don't have any breach of ending of a contract. You're moving it over. And we just want to make sure on our end that no one's making money off it. Mitch, you're not making an extra $5,000 on the side, like a wholesale deal. Then it's on the up and up, I believe. Question?
Back to the question of is there a form to cancel a backup offer? And there is.
Perfect.
Car form CC.
Oh, the cancellation of contract would be it,
Yeah.
yes. Yeah, the cancellation of contract then would suffice for that. Yep. Awesome sauce. Anything else?
There's probably a cancellation to cancel your cancellation.
There probably is. Yeah, and if you think about it, that would be because it is a casual contract, so you can use the car form CC, which would be correct to get you out of, because it really is just you're still in contract, you're still in paperwork, you're canceling that backup offer.
Yeah.
Vince, could you go over when you have a property and you're gonna put it in the MLS in backup position or pending? Could you kind of borrow newer agents, that might help them?
Sure. What you're gonna do is, as you go in and go make those settings, and it asks you how you want to set the status of the property. If you are going to accept backup offers and traditionally use the forms that you're going to use, you're going to go ahead and set that to backup offer or accepting backup offers. Simple and easy. If you go to pending, you cannot accept the backup offer. So once you go to pending, that's the end of the story there. I have had a seller ask me to change that to accepting backup offers and then say, well, I don't want to do the forms. We'll just tell them verbally. And I had to educate them and say, no, we cannot do that because that form is used. We're doing it the proper way, or we don't do it at all. And then I've also had it where they ask me to put it in backup, which we do. We get 3 backup offers, and then they ask me, okay, put it in pending. We don't want to see it. No one showings anymore. We're good. We're comfortable. We've done that as well. And then we go back again and change the status because we're no longer accepting backup offers. And usually if I do that, I will give a call to whoever does have a backup offer saying, FYI, we have changed the status in the MLS to show we're pending, you're still in backup, the seller simply does not want any more showings, and this is the easiest way for us to do that without any confusion for the public.
That's good.
Anything
That's
else?
nice.
Yeah, well, I try to be.
Perfect. Yeah, anybody have any questions? Thank you.
Sounds good.
That was
questions on
awesome.
Any other
Um,
line there?
No, just the,
Oh,
nope, just a
just thank you.
Yeah.
You're welcome. You guys have a great one. If you have nothing else to do today, make your calls and lead generate. Hector, how many calls today?
Very good. Thanks.
How done?
This is great.
All right, thank you, everybody.